I'm Geetha, and I've been with the Zoho finance team for 4 years. And today, we're going to discuss in depth about project accounting and how services firms can leverage the project accounting features of Zoho Books. So here's the agenda for today. So we're going to discuss a little bit about what project accounting is, why is it important, and how it can improve your profitability. And then we will see how project accounting is handled within Zoho. And towards the end, we will also see the kind of insights that we can get from project accounting. So that's our agenda for today. So before we step into the session, let's take a quick look at the professional services firms in general, how big they are, what they do, and what's more important for them. So professional services firms comprise about 5.6 million businesses across the globe. And they offer a range of services right from architecture, engineering, construction, legal services, accounting services, and a lot more. Though they offer different set of services, they all have a common goal, which is to deliver the projects on time and on budget while still maintaining their own profitability. Some call them as jobs, some call them as projects, some call them as engagements, and some call them as matters. But whatever they are called as, projects define the success of any professional services firms. So it becomes important to track the details at the project level so we have more visibility and control over the projects. And that's essentially what project accounting does. Project accounting captures the financials at the project level. It can give us real-time insights about a project by tracking every aspect of a project, right from the number of hours you spend on a project, the expenses that you incur, and the revenue that you make. Now, how is project accounting different from a standard accounting procedure? Now, we all know that standard accounting monitors the financial of an entire organization. It's more focused on the financial health of an entire business, whereas project accounting focuses on the performance of individual projects. And also in standard accounting methods, the business performance is accessed at fixed intervals. The reports are generally run annually or quarterly, which may not coincide with the project schedule, whereas project accounting monitors the performance of a project right from when they start till they finish. And also, in standard accounting methods, the project data is not captured in a comprehensive manner. It mainly captures the data that are necessary for finally billing the client, whereas project accounting captures the project data at the granular level. So those are some of the basic differences between standard and project accounting. So now that we know the difference between standard and project accounting, why should somebody do project accounting? Companies adopting to project accounting show a considerable improvement in profitability. But how does project accounting improve the profitability of a business? The insights that we get from project accounting is what makes all the difference. The real-time insights that we get from project accounting can help us make the right decisions and implement process changes right when we have the time to fix a problem. And one way to improve profitability is by cutting down the cost. Project accounting allows us to take a closer look at the expenses so we know better about where we are spending our money and cut down on avoidable expenses. And in a way, project accounting allows us to pick and work on the right projects. So some projects might look profitable than they actually are. You could be spending a lot more money, or you could be spending a lot more time working on the project than what you make out of it. But by focusing on the right metrics, we can identify such projects and decide to work on it or not in the future. And project accounting also directly improves the staff engagement. Since with project accounting, the profit and other important metrics are tied down to the project level, it adds more visibility so your team knows better on what they're doing, they stay more proactive, and they automatically become more involved and accountable for the success of the project. And when individual projects are on track, it adds to the overall profitability of a business. Now here comes the twist. So though there are obvious benefits in doing project accounting, there are still challenges in following this method, mainly because of the methods or the tools adopted to do project accounting. In fact, the real challenge lies in capturing the project data. Spreadsheets are still used to capture the time that's spent on a project, and they're often not updated until the pay period. And when finally employees remember to update the timesheets, they don't really know how much time they spend on a project. So this results in inaccurate data entries, and inaccurate data entries cause revenue leakage or they increase the labor cost. And sometimes the data in these spreadsheets could be spread across multiple forms or multiple systems. So when it comes to invoicing the client, the finance team has to go through multiple records to find out how much they have to actually bill the client. So this increases the time taken to create an invoice, and late invoices directly affect the cash flow. And sometimes the real challenge lies in using multiple systems. So the timesheets are captured in one, expenses are recorded in another, and the project management happens in another system. So there are a lot of double entries happening across the systems, inducing manual errors, and at any point of time, none of these systems are updated in real time. So by the time we figure out a problem, the projects could be way off track or over budget. But how do we fix these problems or pick a right tool to utilize the benefits of project accounting? Ideal tool for project accounting should align with the project needs. Now, each project can have a different billing needs, and some projects are done on-site, whereas some are done in-house. So the tool that we pick needs to be flexible and accessible from anywhere. And the tool that we pick should also be able to replace what we have currently without affecting the business process much. And it should be easy enough for your entire team to adopt. And it's also better if a single tool is comprehensive enough to handle the entire gamut of operations, right from creating estimates, tracking timesheets, recording your expenses, billing your clients, reconciling the transactions, and generating the reports at the project level. Now, it's even better if the tool allows you to automate some of the routine tasks. Automating routine tasks can come a long way in improving the efficiency of a project. Now, and most important of all of these is the instant access to metrics. The real power of project accounting lies in the insights that we get out of the data. So pick a tool that helps you get the maximum out of your data. Now, with all these in mind, let's take a look at how project accounting is handled within Zoho. Now, as you would be knowing, Zoho Books is a comprehensive accounting system that's capable of handling all the aspects of a business, right from managing your sales, purchases, inventory, bank reconciliation, tax filing, and generating financial reports. And for services firms who work on a project basis, Zoho Books can be configured to handle project-wise accounting. So you can set up your projects, you can enter your time entries and expenses, you can create invoices for these billable entries, and you can get real insights from your project data. And in case your projects are being managed in Zoho projects, you can make use of the inbuilt integration and sync the project information over to Zoho Books and handle your project accounting with Zoho Books. Now let's take a look at some of the project-centric features in Zoho Books. So Zoho Books is capable of handling the different billing methods of a project. So some projects are fixed cost projects, wherein you bill your client for one fixed amount, whereas some projects are billed based on the number of hours you spend on a project. And some projects can be billed based on the number of hours you spend on different tasks or based on the number of hours your staff spend on a project. If your project falls under any one of these, Zoho Books is capable of handling the billing needs. Next comes the budgets, which is a very important component of a project. So in Zoho Books, you can set up the total budget cost for a project, or you can also set up the total budget in terms of the number of hours they can spend on a project. You can also specify the budgets in terms of the number of hours you could spend on a particular task, or based on the number of hours your staffs can work on a particular project. And when it comes to capturing the time and expense you incur for a project, Zoho Books makes it a lot easier by giving you multiple options to track time as well as expenses. So the employees can just hit the timer on and capture the time as they work. And when it comes to recording expenses, they can use the auto scan option to capture the receipts and associate to the project. And when it comes to billing the client, Zoho Books makes it a lot easier by using the integrated billing approach. So the integrated billing approach automatically brings together whatever billable time entries and billable expenses that you have and creates an invoice. So we no longer have to look at multiple places to find out how much a client needs to be invoiced. All right, so now setting up a project in Books means adding my timesheet users to an accounting system. Now if you're worried about what your staffs could see within your accounting system, we've got you covered. The role-based access allows you to add your timesheet users and give them just enough access to capture time, capture expenses, and monitor the progress. And every project has its own set of documents, process documents, and all that stuff that needs to be maintained. With Zoho Books, you can attach the project documents at the project level, and you can also create folders for each project and group these documents under them. And you can even control the access to these documents. And sometimes you might have a lot more information to be captured at the project level, apart from what we provide by default. So when you have such a need, you could make use of custom fields. For instance, if you're running an architecture firm, and if you would like to track whether the service that you provide is for a commercial customer, you can simply create a custom field to track this information. Custom fields can also be added to capture the start date or end date of a project, or you can even use them to auto-number your projects. Now, Zoho Books has an automation module by itself, where you can set up workflow rules to automate routine tasks. So these workflow rules can also be set up at the project level, so Zoho Books can send out email alerts or notifications based on the changes happening at the project level. For instance, I can set up a workflow rule and tell the system to notify me as and when the unbilled hours of a project crosses a certain value. So I know that it's time to bill my clients. Now, coming to the most important part. Every project in Zoho Books has its dashboard on its own, so from which you can find out detailed information of a project. And apart from the dashboard, you also have reports that can be generated at the project level. And in addition to this, we can also make use of the integration with Zoho Analytics, push the data to Zoho Analytics, and analyze the data from various perspectives. Now, if you're a Zoho Projects user and do your project management in Zoho Projects, here's how you can make use of the project accounting features in Zoho Books. So once you set up the integration between both these applications, the projects, tasks, bugs, timesheets, and users from Zoho Projects syncs over to Zoho Books. And once you have the details in Zoho Books, you can create all the financial transactions for your projects. And apart from this, you can also run reports and analyze the financial aspects of your project. And within Zoho projects, this integration allows you to create transactions like invoices, estimates, and expenses using Zoho books right within Zoho projects. Now, let's take a fictitious example and see how they can manage the projects within books. So I've picked a firm that offers data migration services, and we're going to see how they can handle their project accounting in books. So every migration that they handle is captured as a project in books, and their projects are billed based on the number of hours they spend on the different tasks. And they also have a budget that they need to stick to, and these budgets are specified on the number of hours they can spend on each and every task. So we're going to look at the entire process of setting up a project, capturing time entries, capturing the expenses, and creating an invoice for the clients, and also at the insights that we're going to get from capturing all these project data. Now, setting up a project is quite easy in books. You either go to the project module and create a project yourself, or you can create a project from an estimate once it's accepted by your client. And there are 4 pieces of information that goes into creating a project. First one is the billing method, so which in this case, it's going to be based on the task hours. Second comes the budget, which is specified in terms of the number of hours they can spend on a project. And third comes assigning or allocating the tasks who can work on the project. And finally, specify the task information, including the rate you're planning to charge per hour, as well as the budget, and mark them as billable or non-billable. Now, project templates such as these can also be cloned. So next time they get to work on a different project similar to this, they can simply clone this template and quickly create a new project. Now, at the beginning of the project, if they would like to collect a 30% advance payment, they can create a retainer invoice right from the project module and use any of the payment gateways that we are integrated with to collect online payments. And at any point of time, they can look at the dashboard to see how much of the retainers are still available. Now, once they start working on the project, they have different options to log the time that they're spending on the project. So the employees can hit the timer on, and it automatically captures the time as they work. Apart from this, there's also a Chrome extension, which captures the time that they're spending on a project. And in case they're out to meet a client, they can use our mobile applications to capture the time that they're spending on a project. Now, timesheets can also be captured on a weekly or a monthly basis, though we highly recommend capturing it on a daily basis. Now, if your client wishes to verify these time entries before they are actually invoiced, we can set up a client approval process and invoice the time entries once the client approves them over the portal. So this is highly optional, and you can set it up based on your client's preference. Now, as they start running the project, it has its own set of costs associated with it. And there are different ways to capture these expenses. So you can either auto-scan the receipt and associate it to the project. And when they're associating it with the project, they have an option to mark them as billable. So if they plan to claim this money back from the customer, while they're adding an expense, they just have to mark it as billable. And when it comes to invoicing the client, the system will automatically pick these expenses. And let's say they keep adding time and expenses for the project. And when it comes to billing, they have an option to include all these billable time entries, the billable expenses, the purchases that they have made for the project, and they can even adjust the retainers that they have collected for the project. And they can also decide what needs to go on the invoice. So you can either group the time entries or the expenses by users, or you can group them by tasks, or you can list out the individual time entries, or you can add a single line on the project. And so these are some of the payment gateways that we integrate with. So while the invoice is being created, you can use any of these payment options to collect online payments. And as and when the client makes a payment for the invoice, the status of the invoice automatically changes to paid. And at any time, they can make use of the invoice details report to find out which of the invoices have been paid, not paid, or overdue. Now, so this is the project dashboard that every project has in books. Right by looking at the project dashboard, you can find out the profitability, you can compare the billed versus unbilled hours, you can find the total expenses that they've made, they can find out how much each users have logged, and they can also find out how much of their budgeted hours or amount has been utilized. Apart from this, they can also find out the profitability of a project by running the profit and loss report for every project. So this is something that was not possible with the standard accounting method. Now, if they would like to track the performance across projects, they can make use of the project summary report. So this project summary report contains a lot of information about a project. For instance, they can find out how much revenue they have made so far and how much revenue is yet to come by comparing the billable versus billed summary. Likewise, they can find out how much of their budgeted hours or amount has been utilized by comparing the logged versus budgeted summary. And if for any project the logged amount is higher than the budgeted amount, they get a clear indication right on the report. So the project summary can also tell you how much of the logged hours has been spent on billable or non-billable activities. So if a project has more number of non-billable hours than the billable hours, it could mean that the clients are back with unpaid revisions or rework. So from that report, we can also drill down to see what's happening at the project level. So for a project, if the unbillable hours are consistently high, then it's time to go back and see if some of the tasks needs to be considered as billable in the future. Now, so they have set of reports to capture the profitability as well as the billability analysis. Now, if they would like to track the expenses that they have incurred for running the projects, they can run the expenses by project report. So this report groups the expenses by project, and from this report, we can also drill down to see the expenses at the project level. We can find out which of these expenses have been cashed, which of these invoices are yet to be invoiced, or which of these invoices are non-billable. Now, these are some of the default reports that you get at project level right within Zoho Books. Now, if you would like to visualize these reports or compute other metrics at project level, you could go for the Zoho Analytics integration. By setting up the integration between Zoho Analytics and Zoho Books, we can sync all the data from Zoho Books over to Zoho Analytics and then build your own report on the financial data. So this particular metric, employee utilization rate, is derived just from the timesheet details. So this can tell us how much hours a particular user is spending on a project at any point of time. So this metric essentially helps us in allocating resources, and in the long term, it can also help us identify the right skill to hire or develop. So in case they get a new project to work on, they can look at the employee utilization rate and find out which of their resources are free to work on another project. And we can also compare the employee utilization rate across different projects to see which of these projects are consuming more time. So if a project is consuming more time of your clients, it could mean that the clients are demanding more work, and sometimes they could also be unbillable work. And this is another report which compares the employee utilization rate with the skill set. So by comparing this for a period of time, we can find out which of the skills are in demand. For instance, by looking at this report, they will know that they need to hire a data specialist rather than somebody who takes care of back office works. Now here's another metric similar to employee utilization rate, but this is more of a profitability report. Employee realization rate tells us about how well a company is equipped to translate their logged hours into revenue. So if there's a difference between the utilization rate and the realization rate, It could mean that the employees are spending too much time on non-billable hours. So we have captured the project data, and we have also generated reports, but we won't be looking at them too often. So for such cases, you can set up notifications or alerts. For instance, this alert is going to tell me as and when the utilization rate of any employee crosses 70%. So once you figure out the metrics that you need to look at for a project, you can put them together to create a dashboard within analytics, and this dashboard can also be loaded within books. So if you notice, the dashboard that I built in Zoho Analytics can be accessed right within Zoho Books. So apart from the default project-based reports that you get within books, whatever you build using Zoho Analytics can also be accessed within Zoho Books by using the Web Tabs option. All right, so that takes us to the end of this session. So that's a little bit about project accounting. So I would like to give you a quick recap on the different things that we discussed. So we started with seeing what project accounting is and why it's important, and then we saw how we can set up a project in books and capture the project details, and then we saw about the different kind of insights that we can get out of the project data. Thank you all.